Hello, welcome to Aging Well in America. I'm Anne Marie Gattari, your host. Every day, some 10,000 people in the United States turn 65 years old. 5.5 million people are 85 and older. By the year 2050, which isn't that long from now, 20 million people will be aged 85 or older. Are we ready? Is America ready? There's so much good work going on around the country, around the state, and right here in our own community. And we have with us today someone who is doing some of that good work, and his name is Rob Lubera. Welcome, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You have a very important role in this community, working with the elderly and the aging, and it starts with your law firm, of which you are a partner,
Yes.
and you do specialize in elder care law. Why don't we talk a little bit about what is elder law, what your firm does, and then we'll get into some of the other really important work you're doing in the community.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So our firm specializes in basically three areas, and so do I. The traditional estate planning, which are the wills and the trusts and the powers of attorney. The estate and trust administration is basically administering the documents that we actually draft on the estate planning side.
Okay.
And in the area that you had mentioned specifically about the elder law, there's not a great definition, and I'm not even a big fan of the name because a lot of my clients will come in and say, am I elderly? Is this why you're talking to me about these issues? And so the way I like to describe elder law is that it basically takes off from where the traditional estate planning attorney left off.
Okay.
So when you went to the traditional estate planning attorney, well, why did you go to see him or her? Well, you went to see him or her to talk about what happened after you passed away, right? Who the beneficiaries would be, who would be in charge of winding up your affairs. And the way I like to explain elder law is, you know, there are a lot of issues that happen between the time that we're happy and healthy and we pass away. And so all these issues as to aging, as you alluded to earlier, the aging population is just, it's exploding. And so there are a lot of questions that people have about the aging process. How do you plan for it? What are your options? And basically that's where the elder law side comes in.
Okay. What's one of the biggest questions you get from your clients in this area?
How do you pay for it?
Oh, yeah, that's a good
because
one.
that is a big issue.
Okay.
Obviously, depending on where people are, for the most part, depends on how pricey it is. Most people will assume that being at home is the least expensive option, but depending on the exact amount of care, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But generally speaking, it's a sliding scale that works from at home to senior or independent living to assisted living, and then the skilled nursing care facilities. And those, you know, in the three counties in which our community is mostly based, I'm seeing $8,500 to $9,000 per month. I had a client one time that said, oh, $8,500 per year? That's not bad. And I said, no, excuse me, per month.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things that we literally have to work with.
What suggestions do you have for people who are looking how to help pay for this?
Well, that's a really good question. Obviously, you know, the main ways would be assets that they have through their investments. Certainly, if they have long-term care insurance, there are government programs that are basically safety nets. Some that people are the most familiar with would be if somebody is a veteran. There are programs through the VA, and certainly, again, as a safety net, there's this Medicaid program that definitely helps a lot of our aging community pay for these costs.
I'd like to go back to two of them. Long-term care policies, insurance policy, that's a big one. That's one that I see a lot and is very helpful. When's a good time to, I mean, someone who's 78, 80, 85 can't just go out and buy a long-term care insurance policy today knowing they're going to need help next week, or can they?
You're right. Usually the policies that are the most affordable for people or when they look at exploring those options when they're younger.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you're younger, you're thinking about other things than when you're getting older. So much like a lot of the things that we deal with in this area, obviously we're trying the best that we can.
Sure.
And the most important thing is to know your options. And that's another thing that I do see with a lot of my clients, is that when they come in to see me for the first time, a lot of times they don't know that there are options that are available for them. And after I explain to them that there are options, boy, I very often hear the visible sigh of relief, and I can physically see a lot of the stress come off their shoulders. So
I think you hit on a really important point, and that is that there are resources in the community.
Absolutely.
And it's so overwhelming to think that as the adult daughter of this, of a parent, and I certainly went through that myself with my own parents, I may be able to make phone calls on another day, but today, when I know I've got these needs and they have to be met immediately, I'm suddenly feeling overwhelmed. So calling your office and getting, at least for a place to start, right? I'm assuming you have a lot of resources you can lead them to.
Absolutely, because again, when you're dealing with this, if you're, as I tell my clients, if you look at it as a whole, very often it can be so intimidating and so overwhelming, perfect word that you used, that a lot of people just, they don't do anything.
Right.
And so it has to be a starting place. And I'm also a big believer in partnerships, because you can't do it all on your own. And at least from my perspective as an elder law attorney, unlike maybe some, I suppose, but I'm not necessarily the attorney that says, oh, well, you have to send mom or dad or grandmother to a facility or what have you. My main goal is to actually keep people at home as long as possible. And it's really important for them to know that there are healthcare options to be able to keep people in their home as long as possible, because I think with our aging generations, that's where they want to stay.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of options for that.
I mean, if we even think about it ourselves, I know that's certainly where my parents wanted to stay, and they were fortunate and were able to. A couple other ways to do that, you mentioned veterans benefits and Medicaid options through Area Agency on Aging. Could you touch on those two briefly?
That's a good point. The Veterans Administration, they have some very generous programs, not only that are service-related programs, meaning that you may have been injured, as a veteran, but also non-service related disabilities. And that would mean veterans that would be older and they need substantial assistance with activities of daily living. And so if there is a veteran that's older and needs help and has modest income and modest assets, there are programs that could be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per month that they could be eligible for. And that is a big difference, especially if someone is trying to stay at home and have these medical expenses that may have to push them away from their home. And to be eligible for a program like this, it's amazing.
And a lot of people don't understand or don't know that they're eligible because they listen to their neighbors or their relatives who may have made an initial inquiry, and again, because it's the VA and you think of bureaucracy, you're turned sort of discouraged from pursuing.
Absolutely.
But that's something you can help with as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's the VA or Medicaid, there's so much information out there. For instance, if I use Medicaid as an example, regularly I will have clients come into my office and say that, well, my mechanic told me this, or my next door neighbor told me that, and I will say, well, are they elder law attorneys? And they say, well, no. I said, well, I will tell you what the rules are. There's a lot of misinformation. And specifically about, for instance, the Medicaid program, well, a lot of people will like to do research on the internet. And Medicaid is a state-by-state program. There's a lot of federal dollars running through that program, so people sometimes get confused that it is solely a federal program that may be uniform across the states. but in fact every state is different. We administer our rules differently, and therefore you may be reading, or a client may be reading this excellent article on the internet, but it has the wrong rules.
Right.
So the most important thing is getting the information, knowing what your options are, and then being able to make an intelligent decision based on what your real options are.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's. I think those are three really good places for people to consider, and by possibly starting with your office, they might be directed in the right direction.
We're happy to help.
Okay. You come to this area of expertise and knowledge through your community work. I understand you are very, very involved in some important boards and organizations. So start with the St. John Care Continuum.
Sure. So I chair the St. John Providence Health System Care Continuum Board.
Okay.
And it is relatively new. The concepts aren't new, but the board is relatively new.
How old is the board?
Just a few years old.
Okay.
And it is fascinating to be at this juncture, especially with healthcare. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that are going
That's
on
right.
with the Affordable Care Act. But I suppose that the easiest way to explain it is that we're really focused on a patient-centered experience, right? And traditionally, people might think that hospitals are just for the surgeries that happen in the hospitals, but it's a bigger picture. And the goal is really to have that care continuum so that it's not just the procedure that you might receive in the hospital, but to have it be very, you know, kind of an umbrella of services where, you know, everything is basically taken care for in one way or another. So for instance, if somebody is having a surgery, it could be taking place in a hospital, or it could be taking place in maybe a surgery center or surgical center that's outside of the hospital. The care continuum deals with the labs, deals with the pharmacy, deals with physical therapy, deals with all these types of issues. And it's just fascinating to be a part of how the hospital is growing to make it a patient-centered experience.
Yeah, that's so important today. If I understand it the way I first learned and read about this, what I understand is it's a way for the hospital where much of the care starts and its affiliations to oversee the whole, like you say, the continuum of care before the medical event, during and after.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
That's exactly right.
So once they return home after either surgery or rehab, there's still care besides the private duty, which we were talking about, which can be expensive. There's Medicare reimbursed home health care that also it comes along with the continuum.
That's exactly right. So for example, a patient may have had their surgery, and instead of them having to leave the hospital to fill their prescriptions, wouldn't it be a good idea to have their prescriptions ready to go so that when they leave, they have their prescriptions? To be able to follow up with the patient immediately afterwards to make sure that things are going properly,
Sure.
to try to reduce the readmission rate as much as possible, to be able to have the rehab be able to go out to their home to be able to take care of them in that situation. And also to have the electronic records be in a way that everybody is able to...
Everyone has access.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really the medical side of things, which you're
Correct.
obviously very involved in. But then there's also the kind of the social activity side of things, which you also have a big role in, having chaired the Board of Services for Older Citizens, affectionately known as SOC.
That's correct.
In this community, and you've been very active with SOC as well in a volunteer community way.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be, I was on the board for SOC for 7 years, president for 3. And it was during the time in which we were changing locations from the historically the neighborhood club location to our new home on Ridge, which is this beautiful 10,000 square foot building.
Yes, it is.
And it really is, it's just historic for the community to be able to have that type of organization in that type of facility to basically assist our older citizens for time to come. It's very exciting.
It is. There's so many great programs that take place there. Can you tell us a little bit about the building itself, the significance of it in this community and its relationship, historical relationship to Cottage?
Sure, absolutely. So it originally was a nurse's residence. Most people will look at the building and believe that it may be a personal residence, but that's how it was designed. And during the renovation, in talking with the architect and the builders, they said, boy, this building is so well built.
Yeah.
And you know, we joked, if there's ever a tornado, go to the basement of that building because it's going to be protected. But anyways,
No kidding.
we've basically renovated not only the lower level of the basement, where there's a commercial kitchen to assist with food preparation, but there's 3 floors, and the top floor was an attic that we converted into a space that can hold activities. And Services for Older Citizens, the mission, which also kind of ties to my personal philosophy, it is keeping older citizens at home with independence and dignity. And Services for Older Citizens, on average, services about 9,000 seniors a year.
Yes.
In the Grosse Pointes and Harper
Yeah.
Woods. It's an amazing organization.
And it's not just a place where people come, although they certainly do that, but SOC also goes to people's homes,
Sure.
helping with various activities, snow removal, raking, cutting the grass, even whatever needs that they have. I understand there are volunteers that are wonderful over there.
Absolutely. We have about 600 volunteers. We do everything from information and assistance, so people can call in. There's a case coordinator, like social workers, assistance with Medicare Part D. We even have volunteers that will drive people to their doctor's appointments and things like that. And a program that I love is a Mutts and Meows program, because not only do our older citizens need some help, but sometimes their pets need some help too.
Yes.
So we do information and assistance. We do meals, not only luncheons and teas, but we also do Meals on Wheels, which most people don't necessarily think of Grosse Pointe and Meals on Wheels, but it is really important for our older citizens who do not have a lot of mobility to be able to have that program. And we do minor home repair, and we also do fun and fitness type programs. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, around the holidays, it's really fun. It's a place to be. I know you're also familiar with the Grosse Pointe Woods Senior Citizen Commission, which is a governmental entity and also serves all the seniors in all of the Grosse Pointes, not just the Woods. There are several, of which I am a part of that commission. I'll just tick off some of the things that we do. Upcoming in the fall is the annual picnic at Grosse Pointe Woods Park, Lakefront Park. New this year is we're going to be doing an educational forum, and it ties very closely into what SOC does, so we'll be sharing information. And there's a representative from SOC on the commission as well. So all the things tie together. I'm very proud of the Grosse Pointes and the activities and services that we have for our seniors in this area.
Absolutely. It's an excellent organization.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you are a young man, so how did you find yourself drawn to this area of work?
It's a very good question. I suppose I've always been interested in helping people and being able to give back, and that's just something myself and my family has always done, so I learned from my parents in that respect. And especially on the elder law side, as I've told people, and I've lectured to, I was asked to give a talk in front of some law students, and I said, you know, if you're interested in the elder law field, you can't fake it. You have to really like to help people, and especially the aging community have issues that maybe some other segments of the law don't have. And you have to have a lot of patience, you have to have a lot of caring, and you have to have a lot of heart, because many of my clients, I won't say most, but many of my clients do come in with the word that you used earlier, overwhelmed. And I think it really is important to make sure that we stabilize the situation, we rationally look at what all the options are, we have a plan, and we move forward. And that really is the best way to deal with these types of situations. But I enjoy what I do, and from the estate planning to the elder law side, it's a very rewarding profession.
Yeah. When you said you can't fake it, that reminds me of an article I read by of a doctor who is working in the Alzheimer's research field, and he said, if you're working in this field, you don't pursue it, you don't find it, it finds you.
I agree.
So many people working in the area of working with elders were brought there by personal experience, and others just by watching what's going on in their community and knowing that that's what they wanted to do and where they wanted to become involved. So I hear that day in and day out. Absolutely. And it also requires an ability to do what it takes, right? Sometimes there may be a little more hand-holding that you have to do than another attorney might do in a different area of the law.
That's exactly right. I will very often go to people's homes, drive them to different places to make sure everything gets taken care of properly.
You've mentioned that, yes, yes.
So very often I do feel like not only an attorney, but very often we become friends throughout a process. So
I once heard another, a totally different area. This young man cuts trees. And we were talking about this area of caregiving and so forth, and he said one of his clients, when he would go to trim the trees in his yard, he said, when I went, I knew I had to dedicate at least a half a day, because really what this elderly gentleman wanted was company. And so he just went, trimming the trees was really cursory to what the real goal was in that man's eyes, which was to have company and have somebody to talk to for a few hours.
Absolutely.
So we know the value of not only directing people through this or helping them navigate this really complex area of life as they reach the end, but the companionship and the companion care that goes with it, that I think families are beginning to understand, especially adult children who live farther away.
That's why I also appreciate you having a show like yours to make sure that people understand that not only are there options, but there are people like them that have the same issues.
That's right.
And I think that people very often think that maybe they're the only ones that are having these types of issues or concerns or anxieties, and it's not. And
they're truly not. Maybe we could put Rob's phone number up again, please, so and give people time to get a piece of paper and pencil. 586-447-9910. And the website is WSL-PLC.com, and that's for Wakefield, Sutherland, and Lubera.
That's correct.
Okay, and those are your partners?
Yes,
and
that's correct.
You are also a partner in this firm?
That's correct. We have two offices, one in St. Clair Shores and one in Troy, although I live in Grosse Pointe. So
okay, so
it's an easy commute.
Typically in the St. Clair Shores office?
I try to be,
yeah.
But I have a lot of clients in Oakland County and northern Macomb County, so I will go back and forth, but that's my main location.
What's the address of that office, please?
It's 23100 Jefferson, and we actually share a fence with the Grosse Pointe Woods Park,
Oh,
even though we're on the St. Clair Shores side.
got it. Okay, so Jefferson and
Martyr.
Martyr.
Yep, on the water side.
Very good, very good. Well, we've come to the end of our show.
Great.
Are there? I think we have about a minute left. Is there anything else that that you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Sure. Maybe on an exciting note, and what you had mentioned before about referencing a researcher in the Alzheimer's side is the amount of research that's going on and the excitement that's going on. I like to reference an article that I read quite a while ago. I think it was in the Wall Street Journal from a researcher that had concluded that the first person to have lived or who will live to 150 has already been born.
My goodness.
And it's interesting that I just looked at an article in Forbes that interviewed him again and said, well, maybe 70 to 90%. I'm sure that the first person to hit 150 has been born. But on a positive note, the amazing things that are going on with research and for the aging is also going to transform medicine over the next 10 and 20 years. So it's really exciting.
Yes, it is. Longevity is definitely in our future.
Absolutely.
Rob, thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts and your knowledge, and thank you for all the work you do in our community.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay, well, we have come to the end of another show of Aging Well in America. As always, I welcome your ideas. Please send them to us here at the Grosse Pointe War Memorial. Thank you.